All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lew Gravis. I'm a sociology instructor, but I am the former director of distance learning. So I have a lot of involvement and experience with online courses. Also, I was responsible for our campus transitioning from Blackboard to Moodle. Have any of you used Blackboard before? It's a learning management system, very much similar to Moodle, but Blackboard is proprietary in nature, whereas Moodle is more open source, and it allows us to we have more flexibility with Moodle than we did when we had Blackboard, and it's a lot cheaper. So that's a really nice plus as well. So what I want to do today is just talk to you about what online courses are all about. How many of you have had an online course before? Anybody? All right, so you pretty much already know the ins and outs of what an online course is about. So I want to talk about that, and then if you have any specific questions, I don't have like a specific script that I'm following, but I'm just going to show you some useful tools to be successful in an online course. I've been heavily involved in developing online courses. I taught my first online course in 2001, and I was actually part of a team in the state that was selected back in 2000 to create 10 core online courses. When I was chosen for the team, I had absolutely no idea how to even go about logging into an online course. I was just as clueless as a lot of people that have never had any experience with an online course at all. So I was responsible. I was on a team where we created Introduction to Sociology, which is a course that I teach, Soc 210. And then the following year in 2001, I was asked to teach. I think I was probably the first, if not one of the first, to teach an online course. And at the time, I thought it was a fad. I thought, oh, it's just a new kind of technology. It's here today and gone tomorrow. But fast forward to 15 years, from 2001 to 2016, and clearly online learning and distance learning is here to stay. So it's not going anywhere. And we have a greater number of our students that are taking advantage of online courses. Like I said, in 2001, we maybe offered about 3 or 4 online courses this year. This semester alone, we have almost 80. So in 15 years, we've grown exponentially in the number of online course offerings that we have. Okay. So what I want to do is show you some helpful tips that can help even a more experienced person with Moodle and online courses. So what we recommend here at Sanson Community College is when you're using Moodle to choose the browser Google Chrome. In the past, we would encourage people to use Firefox, but we started having students and some faculty and staff that had some incompatibility issues with some of the functions and features in Moodle, so now we encourage them to use Google Chrome, and we seem to have less problems with that. See, I still talk like I'm part of the distance learning team, though I'm not, but you know, I've only transitioned this past January. So what we'll do is double click that icon that reads Google Chrome, and that should launch our Sanson Community College homepage. And then you see here on the left, we've got Moodle. And so we just click that link and then log into Moodle. All right, so again, this is a point if anyone has any issues with Moodle, I'll be glad to help you out. So go ahead and log in. And of course, my login page might look a little bit different from yours. So what we're going to do is, first I want to show you something called the SCC Moodle Orientation. So if you look on the left-hand side under your course categories, you should see a link for SCC Moodle Orientation. And it'll look like this when you click it on. Does everybody see that? So I'm going to get to that point first. Right. You might have to click all courses and then SCC Moodle Orientation. Okay. Okay. Just check to make sure everybody's there. Just click all courses right there. And then click SCC Moodle Orientation. Mm-hmm. And then click My Courses. Okay. Let's see. And there should be SCC Moodle. Here, excuse me, let me just see this real quick. Okay. Let's see. Not Moodle faculty resources. Let's go to this home. Maybe there's I'm not sure why it's not showing up on here, to be honest with you.
It's okay.
Yeah, if you just don't mind following along.
I'll follow along.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So go ahead and click that link for SCC, and then it'll prompt you for a enrollment key, and it's capital F for fall 2016, capital F, lowercase a, LL 2016. And then it should let you in. It's fall 2016 with a capital F.
We're supposed to go to which one? Sorry.
No, that's okay. Go to the SCC Moodle Orientation. Perfect. Okay, so we're all there. So this is actually, when I was in distance learning, we used to have people log into this site. It's still available. I know when in my face-to-face sociology classes, I encourage my students to self-enroll in this because there's a lot of useful information in here. We've got a distance learning handbook, which we're not going to go over or anything like that, and a student manual, which is really nice. It's something that we created here at SCC, so if there are any specific general Moodle questions that you might have, you can click that link and it will actually bring up the manual in a PDF file, and you can use that as a reference. And then, like I said as well, with the distance learning handbook, that's available too. And that is specific to our campus here at Sampson Community College. Okay. Here it talks about logging into Moodle. And again, this is, for those of you that have had an online course or are currently in an online class, this is probably not going to seem like it's anything revolutionary, but for those that haven't, might find this interesting. And we just talk about how you can download Google for free. If you follow our link, it's a safe site. And then also, we have helpful hints about word processing packages that we encourage students to use. We're a very Microsoft-friendly campus, so we encourage students that if you are typing and submitting a document, that you use Microsoft Word. If you don't have access to that, you could save your document as an RTF file, rich text format. And sometimes students can also submit their documents as PDF files as well. I know in my online classes I still have students that will try to submit Microsoft Works, which doesn't work because we don't have the software to open up those documents. A couple years ago, I had someone to submit a WordPerfect file. I didn't even know people had access to WordPerfect anymore. But anyway, so we're a very Microsoft-friendly campus, and that's what we encourage. You actually have access to the Microsoft Office tools in your email account. If you've logged into email, you know that you can sync to Microsoft Office and you have access to Word, PowerPoint presentations, Excel, and so on. Okay. This is some information about WebAdvisor that you might find helpful. And we even have a new student orientation on that. And then here's some more information about how you can add Office 365 to your mobile device, which is really handy. We know that sometimes students may not have access to a computer. You're in an online class and it's Sunday night. You know you have to get something submitted pretty quickly, so the phone isn't always ideal, but you know some of those phones are like mini tablets, like phablets. They're huge and you could almost do as much on a phone today as you could in the past with just a regular PC. So there's some information on how you can access that. Here's some information about the password management system and changing your passwords and whatnot, copying, pasting within documents, completing assignments. And some of these, we even will have videos and tutorials. So if, for example, you were interested in checking your grade, especially someone that's never used Moodle before, hey, you want to find out what your grade is, so you simply click this link, and then a video will appear. And on course, Soch 210, and I'm enrolled as the student Brandon Johnston. Does that voice sound familiar? Okay. So anyway, just a little bit on the left-hand side, under settings, I'll see a link that reads. You know how that is, like you hear your voice, it's such a cringeworthy thing. So anyway, but that's a video that I probably did a couple years ago, but this is really helpful stuff because a lot of times students will ask me, how do I check my grade? I'm like, well, if you go to the Moodle Orientation site, sometimes I'll show, but it's nice that you have access to all of these resources. Respondus Lockdown Browser, there are a number of our faculty here that require you to download and take your exams on a separate browser. And so sometimes there's some confusion about the process involved in that. It's pretty straightforward, but sometimes, especially with students that have older devices, that can be problematic. So it's really important, if you are taking an online class the first week or so, that you make sure that you get all those bugs and kinks worked out, especially if exams and quizzes in your class are very heavily weighted. Here it just talks about system requirements. So you can see this is a great comprehensive website. Again, if you've been here for a year and a half, it may seem somewhat boring and repetitive to you, but especially for our newer students, the Moodle Orientation site is really helpful. So what I want to do is give you a little insight into an online class. This is a copy of a class I did a couple years ago. So if on the upper left-hand portion of your screen, just click the Home button. Okay. And then again, back under the SCC Moodle Orientation, you'll see another link that reads Moodle Training Course 20. Does everyone see that? Moodle Training Course 20. And just walk around here and just make sure everyone can get access to that. Yeah. You just click the SCC Moodle Orientation and then that should show up. Yeah, the password for that is Workshop 2016. That's Workshop with a capital W, O-R-K-S-H-O-P 2016. Nancy, I'm sorry. Okay, perfect. Okay, there we go. There I am. Can't miss that, right? Okay. Yeah, I had set this course up a couple years ago, and I saw my picture. I had hair, so I thought I might want to kind of update that one again since that's kind of not going on right now. But anyway, so this is Moodle Training Course 20. Sometimes when I was in distance learning, we would have breakout sessions with students or faculty or staff, and we basically give them training sessions. Again, kind of going over the basic fundamentals of Moodle and how everything works out. If you take an online class now, there is a bunch of conditional settings that are set up that will not release a lot of information to you as a student until you take the MOCA. The MOCA is the mandatory online course assessment. It's required of all students taking an online class. Even if you take 3 separate online classes, you have to take 3 MOCAs, and you have to take it every semester. That's pretty much state guidelines that we're having to follow with that. And once a student completes the MOCA, then we've got what's called conditional release. So that's a condition. Once that condition is satisfied, then the rest of the course is released to the student. Sometimes you may have a faculty member that only releases the course in segments. And then you'll have others, they release everything to you all at one time, and you basically work at your own pace. So this is not exactly the way it looks, but at least it kind of gives you an idea of what it looks like. So what I want to do is, again, talk about some of the basic functions that students will encounter in an online class. Again, since I'm talking about the MOCA, if you scroll down, you'll actually see a link here for the mandatory online course assessment. So go ahead and click that. And then it should not say continue the last attempt. It should allow you to take the assessment. Okay, so let's see here. So click the link that reads attempt this quiz now. Okay, and then what does it say? Start attempt, and click that. And then just answer those questions. And it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. I'm not going to look at your list and talk with your instructor and say, that person missed 3 questions, you know. It just basically shows you how tests and quizzes are laid out. Okay. Now this is through Moodle itself. And what I said earlier when we looked at the Moodle Orientation course is that there is Respondus Lockdown Browser. And again, that is a separate browser that you would download to your desktop computer. And also it's iPad compatible as well. So if you have a more recent version of the iPad, like the iPad 3, I don't think they call it the iPad 3, or the iPad Pro, you should be able to download it on that. I don't think there's anything available with the Android platform just yet, but I know that with iPads that we've had students successfully to be able to do that. And so you simply just answer the questions, and then when you finish, it should say submit, right? Yeah. All right, and then just click the submit button, and then it will give you an immediate score. And so one of the great things about online classes, and even hybrid classes, which are a combination of a online class and a face-to-face class, right? So typically about half the time you'll be in class, half the time you'll actually do your work online. But one of the great advantages of testing in an online setting is that in most classes you get immediate feedback. You know how it is in a face-to-face class, you take a test or a quiz, and especially if you have an instructor that takes 2 weeks to grade them, that's such a painful process. I don't know about you, that drove me absolutely crazy when I was a student. But in an online class, just like the instant feedback. So you can be overjoyed or depressed instantaneously once you submit and see what your grade is, right? Okay, just kind of kidding with that a little bit. But it's a great feature because one of the downsides to online testing is that a lot of students, and I would be guilty myself if I were a student, use Wi-Fi connections. So if you have access to a hardwired connection taking an assessment, that's ideal, because in a Wi-Fi setting, if you have a nanosecond of interruption, the smallest amount of time where you, for whatever reason, lose the connection, it usually invalidates the assessment. So if you're taking a 100 question unit exam and you're on question number 97 and there's a glitch with your Wi-Fi, it's sort of like Monopoly. Go to jail. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. And you find yourself in a very frustrating situation because a lot of times a faculty member with the newer versions of Moodle will not be able to retrieve and restore your assessment. And you'll have to start all over again. Now, usually it doesn't happen, but I just like to let people know that if you're taking a really lengthy assessment and you do have a Wi-Fi connection and there is a momentary glitch, then that's something just to be forewarned about. Additionally, if you, well, that's good. That's good to know for now. Okay. So really important. Make sure if you have a hardwire connection, you have access to that. Okay, going back to the class, you can click this MTC20. And if you scroll down here, for me it'll look a little bit different, but you'll see something that says My Grades, and you can click that and it will give you an online gradebook. And then you can see everything that you've had graded up to that point in time. Some of the faculty, especially in the online classes, will post announcements. And this is a really nice feature as well to kind of keep you up to date with when certain assignments and quizzes and forums are due. Again, some take advantage of this and some don't. Once an instructor posts an announcement, like here I could just say, A1, and then announcement, and scroll down. And then if I click mail now, it's going to post to the forum, right? Okay. So when you're in the class, you'll see that when you click announcements, that there's an announcement that I've posted. You will also, on your front page in Moodle, get an email message. And in that email message, the same content that's in the announcement will be in the Moodle email message. And in your Office 365 account, your school email account, you should also get the same message. So there's two different places that you can get a message. And that's why if you're taking an online course, it's very important to check your email, because sometimes students don't do that. And then they miss out on certain, there's the syllabus that basically outlines everything that you're supposed to do. And you'll probably have a class schedule that will outline everything you're supposed to do. But sometimes throughout the semester, it's easy to get lost in the shuffle, especially if you're taking a number, maybe 4 or 5 additional classes. So checking your email at least once a day, I know for some people that seems a little bit cumbersome, but it really does keep track. And not just that, but other school-related announcements. For example, over the past couple of years, we've had some scams involving financial aid, where we had students that would receive an unsolicited email message. It seemed like it was from the institution, but it was just a scam, and they were asking students to send money in order to secure some level of financial aid. Well, we were able to use email to do that and also post announcements in Moodle. So there were some students, obviously, that had concerns. They contacted the school, especially Student Services and Financial Aid Division. But it's just nice for other related and unintended reasons to basically check up on that. Okay. So in every online course you have, your instructor will have a course syllabus. And we'll go ahead and find the course syllabus. I hope I put a course syllabus in here now that I'm looking. Oh, here we go. Okay. So you can just go ahead and click that, and that will open up as a Word document. And, obviously in an online class, you are very limited in the interaction you have with an instructor. Face-to-face classes and even hybrid classes, or web-assisted as well, are very different because you have some level of contact with the instructor. But in an online class, you're basically completely and totally on your own, aren't you? Okay, it's sort of like if you ignore it and you don't check your email and you don't do your assignments, obviously after a short period of time, it's going to get you in a lot of trouble. So your syllabus is, in essence, your contract for the course. It's sort of if you buy a car, you sign a contract. If you secure a mortgage for a house, a contract. This isn't exactly as extreme as that, but you do have a contract. And it basically is spelling out all the conditions and obviously your responsibilities as a student in the class. So in order to be very successful in an online class, it's very important that you don't just skim over the syllabus. I know that a lot of us have a tendency to do that. We have a lot of information that we want to read. But again, bearing in mind that this class is completely online, so it's important that you read all of the contents of the syllabus. Okay, so in mine, I give as much information. My motto is give students more information than they would ever want, because then no one can ever say, well, Mr. Gravis didn't mention this or mention that. Oh, yes, on page, 2, I can always point in my syllabus or somewhere in the course where I have students directed to do certain assignments that are required of them. Okay, I'll talk about the importance of self-discipline. I feel like such a parent, I know, when I'm talking about this kind of stuff, but it really is true. A lot of people think that, oh, if someone, drops out of an online class or they get a failing grade, they're not intellectually capable of doing that. And in most cases, and in my 15 years of experience, that is not the case at all. In my experience and the experience of many other instructors, the number one reason why students fail to complete an online course or receive a passing grade is because they don't have the self-discipline it takes. If you are a procrastinator, you need to think long and hard about taking an online course, especially with some, because just like no two faculty members are alike, no two online courses are exactly alike either, right? So you're going to have some, like myself, that are very demanding, and I have, as students say, all kinds of hoops that I have them jumping through, but that's accountability. In other classes, you may not have all the hoops that you have to jump through, but I can guarantee you that I've got 2 students I can think of right now that are on the verge of already being dropped from the class. And it's not because they can't do decent work. Both of these students I'm thinking about can, but they're not doing the work. They're just not submitting their assignments. And we're talking about, we're only what? A month into the semester. 1 month into the semester. Okay. So that's really not a good place to be when you get really behind at the beginning of an online course, because it's like a snowball rolling down a hill. And it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and out of control. And next thing you know, it's just completely run you over. And you are part of that snowball, and it's continuing to go down the hill. So time management also is very important in an online course too, right? So can you manage your time effectively? And that's why I always say, if you want to be successful, if at all possible, and I know that sometimes we have crazy things that happen in our lives that are kind of hectic, but if you can set aside the same time every week, that really is helpful. We don't have a problem doing that when it comes to our favorite TV show, right? Don't tell me you're going to TiVo it or something, but if you record it. But if you can set aside the same time, just like in our lives, we set aside the same times and days to do certain other things, to do your work. So managing time, because it's easy to say I'm going to do it later, right? And we want to put it off. And there are more exciting things sometimes we want to do. I had a son that graduated from college 2 years ago, and he was 18 when he started, and I was one of those helicopter parents. I mean, if you got too close, it'd probably knock you over. The blades were swinging so wildly. But I would ask him, have you turned your paper in? Did you take your quiz and whatnot? Oh, Dad, I'm going to get to it later. I'm going to get to it later. Right? Do you find yourself saying that sometimes? Because there's something else better going on? But what happens is sometimes unexpected events occur, and then you don't have any time. I know I sound like a parent because I am a parent, even though I have an adult child, but I see this all the time. And again, it's not because students can't do the work. A lot of our students are very capable. It's just managing time effectively and being disciplined. So here we talk about the material that's required. Your instructor is also required to tell you how the course is evaluated, how you will get grades, what percentage of the content will be graded, so on and so forth. Attendance policy. Obviously, it works a little bit different in an online class. In a face-to-face class, your instructor calls your name or passes an attendance sheet around and takes attendance that way. In an online class, it's a different situation, isn't it? Because physically, in most online classes, you never have to set your foot on campus one time for that class, in most of our classes, right? But we have to find a way still to hold students accountable to make sure that they're doing their work. And so that's basically how the attendance policy in online courses is set up. So I used to have a 10-day policy, now it's 5. So I've actually cut that in half. This is a couple years old when I last did this. If you don't submit your work on the due date, then there will be a couple days or a few days in which you have to have it submitted. And if 5 or more days go by, past the due date, you don't have it turned in, that's counted as 1 absence. So I know in my online class, they can miss 8 assignments. To me, that's a lot. Okay, but that involves anything that's submitted for a grade. I have quizzes that correspond with each chapter. I have 5 unit exams. I have 16 discussion board questions. I have 5 chat sessions. Yeah, there's a lot, but everything is spread out over several months. So once a week, there's a unit or a chapter where students have to simply spend some time and do those things. But if they don't, like the 2 students I was talking about earlier, and they just quit submitting work, or I had one student that said, well, I can't get into my Moodle account. This was the 3rd week of the semester. You're waiting now at the 3rd week. And again, I don't really know about that student's level of competence or not, but you're kind of putting yourself behind the 8 ball, and you were able to take the MOCA, so it seemed like you were able to log into Moodle at that time, but then later. So it's very important that you understand what the attendance policy is for your online class, because every instructor will do it differently. Now, we are supposed to follow the Sampson Community College attendance policy, which states that a student must be in attendance for at least 85% of all classes at meet. If a student exceeds 15% or more of the allowable absences, then at the instructor's discretion, that student can be dropped from the class. So an online class, based on the same premise, obviously, here we're using the submission of assignments, tests, quizzes, and forms and chat sessions versus physically being there in the classroom. Okay. So here basically just talks about different policies. We've got hardware and software requirements, how to track your grade. You can see I have a weekly course schedule, 1 week, 1 chapter that corresponds with every week. Talks about reading and the importance of reading your assignments. Form. Have y'all done forum assignments yet? The discussion forums? And that's where you just simply reply. Sometimes you don't just post your own answer, but some faculty want you to reply to a couple of other students to give meaningful feedback that way. And then I have a rubric. But you can see there's a lot of stuff in my syllabus. I talk about forms, how to start a new discussion, writing assignments, what's involved with the writing assignment, how to submit them, how to take online tests successfully, chat sessions. It just never seems like it's going to end, does it? All right, but anyway, so that's how my class is set up. So anytime a student has a question, I usually will always refer the student to my syllabus. I'll say, here in my syllabus, this is exactly where that information is. Earlier I talked about email and how important it is to check your email, because in my class, I have chat sessions. Let's see if you can get into your Module 1 chat. I don't know if I have that open yet or not. I think you should be able to access the Module 1 chat. And then just click here to enter the chat now. Click that link. Oh, perfect. Okay. So go ahead and enter the chat and just type something. Rated G, please. Okay. Perfect. So this is a chat session. This is one of our newer features. It's been around for a couple years in Moodle. Oh, look at that. Very, very nice comment. Thank you. This is my contribution. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Anyway, what I do in my class is I have students do the chats, and I stagger them. I have 16 chat sessions throughout the entire semester, okay? And they only have to do 5. And so there's 5 times throughout the whole semester, and I stagger it. So every week it's at a different day and a different time. And you really need an instructor to do that in an online class, because everyone has a different schedule, right? I mean, that's the whole rationale that's used for taking an online class is I can take this because it allows me to be flexible in my own personal life, in my work schedule, and my school schedule. And if I want to submit an assignment at 2:30 in the morning, which I have happened, then that's when you're free, at 2:30 in the morning. Now, I do not have chat sessions at 2:30 in the morning. But what I do is I intentionally do not participate, because when I participated in the chat sessions, I felt like students were too polite. Not that I don't want students not, but students are a lot more open with the class and with the chapter. So this week is chapter 5 is due, so I have students do chat 5, which corresponds with chapter 5, and I'll say get into the chat session between 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock on Tuesday. If that's available for you, that's great, because again, you only have to do 5 out of 16 and talk about chapter 5. And then what I get is a transcript. So I'm not there, so maybe a day or two later, I can log into Moodle and I can see a transcript of that chat session, and I can see whether the level of participation warrants giving students points. And the chat sessions this semester have been absolutely fantastic. And I have some students that may post 30 different things in the course of 1 hour in their chat session. It's a small part of the grade, but again, it helps students feel more connected in the class, because online, it's not like being in a physical face-to-face class, right? You don't see your classmates. I mean, unless they've got a mugshot with their profile picture, but other than that, you don't see them. And in the chat session, you can at least at some level connect with your students in the session. And then sometimes people are like, all right, I'm checking out. So they just click that box, and that is completely the end of the session. But it's a feature that you'll probably see some faculty in your online courses using. Okay. So let me see if I can actually get a transcript of that right now, if it'll let me do that. Okay, so see where I have this link where it says view past chat sessions? So I can just click that, and I can see everyone that was in the chat session that participated, right? Then I can click this link, and I can actually look at the dialogue in the chat session, and then I can award points accordingly. Okay. All right. So going back to this, again, I talked about forums. So you just click on, whoops, right down. Whoop, I did not mean to do that. Okay, hold on 1 second. Click on the forum. Okay, Module 1 discussion forum. This is on research ethics. Now what I do in my class is I have a video that I show, that you can choose. This one is the cheese factor. I know is pretty high on this one with the cartoon characters.
Most important thing about social research.
So what I do is I have a YouTube video, and I check them every semester because sometimes the links are broken or the people close their accounts and whatnot. And then the forum question I have corresponds with the video. None of my videos in my online classes are longer than 5 or 6 minutes, because after that students actually start to tune out, right? So if you're in class and someone starts to show you an 1.5 hour long video, are you going to really pay attention the whole 1.5 hours? Of course you're not. Okay, would I even pay attention to a 90-minute long video? Of course not. There's just too many potential distractions. But videos, I think, in short, and this is my own personal philosophy, obviously people will vary with my opinion on that. You're more likely to hone in and get the content if it's a shorter video. So mine is on research ethics. So students can click the link for Module 1, and ta-da, there it is. So the question specifically talks about the ASA, which is American Sociological Association. I don't want to bore you with all that, but the guidelines, the prompt is through the video, you've got the question, and then you can respond to the question that way. Okay, and all the students do, you just click on add a new discussion topic, and you start typing away. Okay. Also, I said that most instructors will have you submit writing assignments. Okay, so right here, you can see Module 1 writing assignment. You just click that link, and then right here, again, I give a lot of information. It talks about what the assignment is. And then add submissions, there's a little link right there. Okay. Submissions are actually closed for that one, but actually it'll open up another window and you can browse for your file, attach it, and submit it that way. What happens sometimes is if you have different classes, you might submit the wrong file. I've had a class before where someone submitted an English 111 paper. I don't teach English 111, so you probably meant for Miss Honeycutt instead of Mr. Graffs to get that paper. The great thing is you can always go back into Moodle, you can remove the file and delete it, and then you can attach a new one as long as you do it within the time parameters, because a lot of folks will actually limit the amount of time that you can have access to that. And of course you can see there's a quiz here. That quiz isn't going to be active. We could actually take the quiz. And everything is basically laid out for you in the online class. So I know I've given you a lot of information today. Does anyone have any specific questions for me that I can answer? Nobody? What do y'all think about, how many of you said that you're taking an online class? So is this your first time? No, you've had it. So what's your feeling about online classes?
They're a lot different than face-to-face, like all day. Because I took one over the summer that was completely like all online.
Right. Yeah.
Like you had to read in detail to give us videos. Like some emails, like you could kind of understand, and some were very lengthy, so you were like, okay.
Yeah. And it probably sometimes gives you more appreciation sometimes for a seated class, because one of the biggest disadvantages, and I think you bring up a good point, is there's a lot of reading and you're responsible for all that reading. I have 16 chapter textbook in my intro to social class. It's multiple hundreds of pages long. That's a lot of information to digest and to make sense out of, especially if you're not familiar with that subject area anyway. And then you've got to make some sense out of it. The advantage of, I feel like a compare and contrast paper, right? But the advantage of a face-to-face class is that you have the instructor standing in front of you, discussing the material, expanding on it, maybe giving anecdotes where appropriate, and you're not going to get that. So I know for a fact that a student that takes my intro to social class online versus one that takes it face-to-face will have a completely different experience. And I'm not saying one is better than the other, because they have their advantages and disadvantages, but the heavy reading, and then in the summer, it's compressed, so you've got a whole semester almost cut in half. So you've got twice as much work in half the time. So did you feel a little overwhelmed by that? Yeah, just a little. Yeah, it's a lot to take in. And and you didn't really, what do you like about an online class?
I guess the fact that you don't have to be surrounded by so many people and you just focus on your assignment.
Right, you can do your own thing. Yeah. Right.
And at your own pace.
Right. Yeah. And how about you? You said you had?
I work 8 to 5.
Okay.
So it's flexible.
Yeah, definitely advantageous for you. Definitely. Yeah, especially for our, I don't want to call them older students, because I'm a little older myself, will say non-traditional students that may be juggling a lot of responsibilities at one time. It's not like you're 18, okay, I can go to school, maybe I have a part-time job. If you're 35, the situation is a lot different. You might have a family, you might have a job, you might have other activities in the community, maybe you're heavily involved in your church. I mean, you're trying to juggle a number of things at one time, and it's wonderful. I mean, the online classes, boom, it's there whenever you need it. You know when the assignments are due, you find a time that's convenient for you, and hopefully you don't have a problem doing that. So it's great. We've come a long way in 15 years with distance learning classes. We really have. If you could have seen what it was back in 2001 when I taught my first online class, where we maybe had 2, 3, 4 classes that year, versus now where we have probably 150 plus online classes a year. It's a really big change. But distance learning, especially online classes, are here to stay. So hopefully you'll have success, especially if you haven't had an online class. It's definitely something worth trying out. Just realize that there's a lot more that you're responsible for in terms of managing your time and being responsible than you would in a seated class environment. Thank you so much for your time. I will make sure that your instructors get that information letting you know that you attended today's session, and have a great day.